The drums of Noji thundered through the night, shaking the ground like the heartbeats of ancient spirits. Across the river, the people of Zubri listened to the pounding drums and tightened their grips on their spears, their faces cast in shadow. The river, once a lifeline between the two villages, was now a hostile barrier. Fires crackled in the distance, casting an eerie glow that turned the river's dark waters red. The war, once a flickering tension, had become an unstoppable blaze, devouring peace and replacing it with fear and fury. The villages of Noji and Zuburi had once lived side by side in harmony, sharing the land and the river's bounty. They gathered each year under a massive baobab tree, trading, dancing, celebrating together as kin. The river, which wound through the valley, was the life of both villages, watering their fields and providing fish in abundance. They lived off the land and respected it, growing strong and prosperous together. But as time passed, prosperity turned to competition, and competition grew into rivalry. Old disputes about the land and river turned into grudges that grew with each generation, until finally, peace gave way to resentment. One fateful day, as tension simmered, a young fisherman from Zubri was caught casting his net in waters that Noji fiercely claimed. The elders of Noji, outraged, seized his boat, stripped it of its catch, and sent him back empty-handed. When he returned, shamed and empty-handed, the people of Zubri ceded. Their elders declared that no one from Noji would be allowed to trade in their markets. The feud exploded like dry tinder catching fire, and each village began to act out of spite, cutting ties that had once been woven with trust and respect. With each passing season, the anger and suspicion grew. Men began to patrol the riverbanks with spears and shields, guarding their side of the river from supposed intruders. They watched each other with hostile eyes, and what had once been familiar now felt foreign, even dangerous. Skirmishes broke out, and the fields and paths where children once played turned to battlegrounds where warriors now stood ready to defend their honor. Every look, every sound, seemed a provocation, and before long, small fights turned into bloody battles. A war without mercy. The war came suddenly, like a storm, sweeping over both villages and leaving them forever changed. Warriors on both sides took up arms, spears, bows, and shields, and met in violent clashes along the river's edge. It was as if the land itself had turned against them. The riverbanks, once lush and green, became scarred and trampled, with grass and flowers crushed beneath the feet of those ready to fight. Dust and smoke filled the air, and the cries of battle echoed across the river as the villagers fought over territory, pride, and past grievances. In Noji, mothers and daughters watched from the safety of their homes as their sons and brothers marched to the river. Fathers warned their sons, "Fight hard. Do not let Zubri take what belongs to us." The people of Zubri said the same to their own warriors, their hearts hardened by the belief that they were defending their home. In both villages, fear became fuel for anger, and anger led to endless bloodshed. Weeks turned to months. Fields went untended, and the crops that had once fed both villages withered under the sun. The once abundant river fish went unharvested, and the water seemed colder, darker. Both villages suffered, but pride and pain kept them locked in battle, unable to see a way out. Each side whispered stories of fallen warriors, stories that only fueled more rage and hatred. The land between Noji and Zubri became a no-man's land, littered with broken weapons and trampled grass. The people became strangers to one another, blind to their shared history, their shared humanity. Old stories of friendship and unity were forgotten, buried beneath the stories of anger and loss. The river, the very symbol of life, had become a line in the sand, a border marked by bitterness and blood. The plague's shadow. Just as both villages were stretched to their breaking points, a new terror crept in, silently and without warning. A strange illness swept through the valley, sparing no one in its path. Children, elders, warriors, all were struck down by fevers and coughs that ravaged their bodies. The sickness spread quickly, moving from house to house, striking both villages without prejudice. People lay in their beds, too weak to eat, too weak to speak. The warriors who had once fought bravely now lay helpless, and the cries of mourning filled the air. Mama Amina, the revered healer of Noji, did all she could to tend to the sick. Day and night, she moved from one home to the next, administering her herbal remedies, soothing fevers with cool cloths, and speaking words of comfort to the afflicted. But her knowledge alone wasn't enough. The illness continued to claim lives. Across the river, in Zubri, Baba Obi, an herbalist known for his wisdom, faced the same grim struggle. His herbs and medicines could only do so much against the strange, relentless sickness. His own son, a young warrior, had already succumbed to the illness, and Baba Obi's heart was broken. In a moment of desperation, Mama Amina sent a message across the river, humbly asking Baba Obi if he would be willing to share his knowledge so they could work together to save lives. Baba Obi, who had been hardened by grief and anger, hesitated. But after a long, quiet night spent grieving for his son, he agreed. He realized that no revenge could bring back the lives they had lost. Under the cover of night, Mama Amina and Baba Obi met at the riverbank, the very place that had been the source of so much anger and strife. In silence, they shared their knowledge, their remedies, and their hopes for healing. Together, they mixed roots, leaves, and powders, creating a treatment that neither had known alone. Word of the Healers' Alliance spread quickly, and soon, people from both villages gathered at the riverbank, seeking their help. For the first time in many months, the people of Noji and Zubri stood side by side. They lined up together, their faces weary and worn, their bodies weakened by both war and sickness. As the healers administered their medicines, the villagers spoke to one another in whispers, sharing stories of their losses, their grief, their memories of happier times. The more they spoke, the more they saw the truth. Their suffering was the same. Slowly, the sickness began to subside. The healer's remedy worked, and the villages felt relief wash over them. The warriors, once so fierce and angry, now sat beside one another, some with tears in their eyes, as they reflected on the losses they had caused and endured. They had been blinded by pride and hate, unable to see that they had more in common than they had ever realized. Moved by the alliance of the healers, the elders of Noji and Zubri met once more under the baobab tree. This time, there was no shouting, no accusations. Only quiet, shared grief. They spoke of the lives lost, the homes broken, and the land scarred by their foolishness. They agreed that the war had brought nothing but pain, and they knew it was time to make amends. In a powerful symbol of reconciliation, the elders decided to build a bridge over the river so that their people would never again be divided. Men and women from both villages joined together, working side by side to gather stones, timber, and ropes. They labored from dawn to dusk, building the bridge that would connect their villages once more. As they worked, they shared stories of lost friends, of old feasts, of the days when they had laughed together under the baobab tree. Finally, the bridge was complete. The people gathered on both sides of the river, and as the first person stepped across, cheers erupted. They embraced, laughed, and wept, feeling the weight of the years of hatred melt away. A great celebration followed, with songs, dancing, and feasting. The bridge was named the Path of Unity, a testament to their hard-won peace. The bridge transformed the villages of Noji and Zubri. Where once there had been division, there was now a bond that could not be broken. Families crossed the bridge daily to trade, to visit, to share stories. Children who had once been taught to fear each other now played together, racing across the bridge and swimming in the river's cool waters. The elders passed down the story of the war, not as a call to arms, but as a reminder of what had been lost and what they had gained. Mama Amina and Baba Obi, the healers who had shown the way to peace, became legends in both villages. They were honored each year at a festival held at the bridge, where the people would gather to remember the courage it had taken to put aside hate and choose unity. Their legacy lived on in every crossing, in every handshake, and in every shared meal. In the end, the river that had once divided Noji and Zubri became a symbol of the strength they had found together. And as the sun rose each morning, casting its light over the bridge, the people knew that they had built something unbreakable, a bridge, yes, but more than that, a promise that they would never again be enemies.